Yes. So thank you all for coming. It is a bit hot in here, so I think we're going to go back to old-fashioned technology and open a window or a door to cool it down. Apparently, I have to begin the first item, which is to elect a business chair and deputy business chair for the ensuing year. So, are there any nominations for business chair? Yes, there are, I think. Yes.
That's Barry Fletch, of course.
Paul Evell-Sheldon, Barry Fletch. Well done. Thank you very much indeed. Barry, would you like to come up and then you will take over? No, sorry, we'll have to elect him. Right, hands up who'd like to be elected, like to see him elected. Oh, look at that. That's marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. We'll remind you of this in due course. Let's chatter, please. And I now pass you over to Barry to take over.
Good afternoon and welcome to the public and to members. I remind that this meeting is live on the Council's YouTube channel. Before we move into proceedings, there are a few housekeeping matters that I'd like to bring to members' attention. Can I remind people what used to happen in here is that we'd stand when we speak, and I'd like that to return, if possible, if you speak from the floor. Thank you very much. Can also please remind members that speeches should be limited to 6 minutes. Please may I remind members and officers that all mobile phones must be placed in silent mode and no calls should be made or received in the room during the meeting. So I move into the agenda proper, which is the first item 2, apologies for absence. Karen, do we have any apologies for absence? Councillor Bridget. Are there any more from the floor at all? Yes, Councillor Dickinson.
Councillor Foster.
Councillor Foster. We've also got Councillor Mather as well.
Councillor Jackson.
And Councillor Jackson. Okay. Item 3 on the agenda is to elect a civic head and deputy civic head for the municipal year. Now, can I have a nomination for a proposer for civic head, please? Yes, Councillor Hutchinson.
Could I have great pleasure in proposing Councillor Sesford for the civic head?
And do we have a second for that? We have Councillor Nick Oliver is seconding that. So at this point, this is where we do a little bit of the... Oh, shall I do the deputy one first? I'll do the deputy one first, then we'll do all the chains. We'll do all the chains at one point. Could I have a nomination for the position of deputy civic head? I can see is Councillor Chicken.
I propose Councillor Catherine Seymour.
Thank you very much. And do I have a seconder for that? I see, yes, Councillor Colin Hardy seconding that. Now, are we consent with... I should have probably taken the vote first, but we're happy to take the vote on mass. Yeah. So, are we happy in voting Councillor Sesford in as civic chair? Agreed. And are we happy in putting Catherine Seymour as deputy civic head? Agreed. Thank you.
Well done.
Okay. Now, at this stage of proceedings, we're going to change the chains round, and I think Councillor Hutchinson may wish to say something about his civic year. So we'll do the change of the chains. And
thank you, Chairman. Well, all I can really say is it's been a great privilege to have been civic head, to represent the county at numerous different events in the northeast of England, basically. We've managed to raise quite a little bit of money. We've raised a total of, I think it was £24,500 for motor neuron disease. My name's Doddy. I was up there on Monday presenting the checks to him, and he was over the moon with that. I'd also like to thank my lovely ladies, Susan, who is on holiday at the moment, Tracy and Jackie. Without them, I would have been totally lost. And I think Susan, Tracy, who is here, will back me up on that one. But thank you all very much. I've really enjoyed it, and I have pleasure in handing the chain over to Councillor Sesford, which takes a bit of getting off, I'm afraid.
He's had it for 3 years, that's right.
I know.
very much.
It's all yours. Thank you.
Did you want me to say? Thanks very much for this. It's been a pleasure following Ian for 3 years. I thought he was never going to give the chain up, but nice to see he has done. And also for the charity, because being a die-hard Falcon supporter as well, it was quite good that it was had a link to the Falcons as well. My charity I've already worked out. A lot of you in this chamber will already know it's going to be Tynedale Hospice at Home. There will be some people who's not familiar with it, so I will send out as soon as I can, probably later today or maybe tomorrow or even the next day, a little information sheet telling you all about Tynedale Hospice at Home, instead of reading it all out here today for the meeting. But thank you very much.
We're now going to present Councillor Catherine Seymour with the Deputy Civic Head chain. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that, and good luck for the forthcoming civic year. Okay, I go to the next item on the agenda, which is the minutes of the following meetings of County Council to be confirmed as a true record. That's firstly on pages 9 to 36 for the 23rd of February, and on 37 to 40 for the 23rd of February, and for 30th of March, 41 to 56. Please be aware there's a typing error on page 37 and 41 of the agenda. Both should read extraordinary meeting of County Council. Can I confirm these minutes are a true and accurate record to be signed off? Councillor Watson. Yes. Can you press your button?
Just a slight correction on page 53, the supplementary to my question. Oh, sorry, didn't realise I needed to stand for correction. Just where my supplementary on my question, it says Councillor Scott sought reassurances, so that just needs amending to Councillor Watson. Thank you.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. In the item about the budget, I asked for confirmation that there was £340,000 allocated for the Corbridge car park. That's not what it says it says in the minutes that I asked the question, but I think it should be minuted also that it was confirmed that there is, so that that's a matter of public record.
Yes, I think Councillor Riddle might wish to say on that.
Yeah, I can confirm that that is what was said at the meeting, and that money is still in the budget.
Okay, is there any other points to raise there? I can't see any hands, so can we confirm those as a true and accurate record? Great, thank you very much. We'll move to the next item of the agenda, which is announcements by the business chair, leader or head of paid service. I don't have any. I don't think the head of paid service does, so I will go to the leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just touch on a few of the current really positive things that the County Council and the county are experiencing at the moment. First of all, the Jubilee Fund, you will recall, was £70,000 of new money, which we wanted to allocate to all parts of the county to do their own celebrations of the Queen's Jubilee. That has been oversubscribed. We've had over 200 applications, so we found an extra £15,000 on top of the original amount. Can I thank all of you for the way you have picked this up and worked with your local communities to get the good schemes that are up and running for this really special event. Thank you all very much indeed for that. And if you want to have any publicity at all on the particular schemes, then please let us know. I can report on our Inequality Summit that took place a month or so ago. This was a very well attended, very good summit meeting. The current arrangements are that we are holding localised meetings now to take forward the work a little bit farther. By July, we will have a set of recommendations and a draft action plan that we will look at in the budget preparation time in September. Good news, obviously not for those 7,000 or so that are unemployed, but it is good news that the unemployment figure in Northumberland is down to 3.8%. Now, yes, it's hard on those people that don't have a job, but it's very encouraging that so many more have found jobs, and I hope that trend will continue, and it ought to. because we have British Volt coming in, we've got JDR Cables, and we have a potential new and very exciting investor that's looking at property at the moment. The Port of Blythe, its turnover has been £25 million this year, which is the highest in its 120-year history. And that's very good news for the Port of Blythe and also for the people that work there. We have recently, with North of Tyne Combined Authority, been awarded 51 million of the Shared Prosperity Fund, and we're looking how we will share that. And there are plans being drawn up for Blythe and for Ashington to look how we will invest in those two towns going forward. And of course, we are also looking at the town deals with Borderlands, and we're looking at the big projects that are underway too, in Berwick and in Wooler, for example. I'm really pleased to say that Berwick, yet again under this administration, is receiving more funding through outside bodies and ourselves working with them. We know that there's £4 million going to the Berwick Barracks project and almost £1 million going to the Culture Zone. So I'm really grateful that we have been able to make such an impact in Berwick. And of course, the new leisure centre in Berwick is, as I understand, almost overflowing with membership. That's fantastic news, and I'm really pleased to hear it. So well done, and I'm really pleased that we've been able to do so much in Berwick. The new leisure centre in Morpeth is almost ready, and of course our new schools programme, which will build a school in Berwick as well, but also Amble and Seaton Valley are progressing very well, and I'm really grateful to all the work that's been done on that. In addition to all of these announcements, we've just heard that the government have awarded £163 million on bus improvement to the Joint Transport Committee, which includes us. So we will expect to get a good share of that money, which will see improved bus services. It will see potential pilot park and ride studies, and also may be able to help us with some capital improvement, some of capital projects that need doing around bus services. Now, I just need to say that against all of this positive news, the talks around devolution excuse me, are still continuing. I can't tell you that we're really making a huge amount of progress. My position still remains that we will not enter into a larger authority unless and until there are real benefits for Northumberland, and I'm not convinced that there will be yet. So talks are carrying on with ministers and with colleagues in the LA6 or the LA7 if Durham decide to be part of that. I can assure you, though, what I've always assured you, which is that before any decision is made, I want to, if necessary, call a special council and get all of your opinions before we take a step forward. Finally, I have to say it's with great regret that Kath McAvoy-Carr chose to go to Disneyland instead of coming to this meeting. There are similarities occasionally, but I did tell her this would be far more amusing, but she declined to come. I just want to say and place on record now publicly how incredibly grateful I am, and I know so many of you are as well, for all the work she's done in her previous role and over the last few weeks standing in. She has been a pleasure to work with. Difficult at times, but a pleasure to work with, and I wish her well, and I will be thanking her formally before she goes on behalf of all of you. And finally, I would say how pleased I am that we have a Northumbrian playing for Newcastle United. Brought up in Blythe, played for Blythe Spartans. Dan Byrne is a fantastic player for Newcastle United, and I will be thanking him for everything he's doing for us. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Leader. Our next item is disclosure of members' interest. Does anyone have an interest to declare? Councillor Isabel Hunter.
Thank you, Chair. Personal interest on page 137, response to the licensing consultation. Clerk to Ord Parish Council. I submitted their response but didn't take part.
Okay. Any other declarations? No? Okay. Right, fine. Okay, I'll go to the next item on the agenda, item 7. And item 7 is to note the appointment of the Deputy Leader and Cabinet members by Leader and their portfolio. I believe the Leader wished to speak on this.
Just simply to say that we are making no change to the Cabinet. I'm very proud of the work that they've all done. I am, however, introducing another Deputy Cabinet member, who's David Ferguson. Now, some of you may know Dave. He's just new, but he comes with a huge amount of knowledge around the NHS in particular. So I've asked him to take the Deputy Cabinet responsibility for adult services, with specific responsibility to drive our inequalities work forward. We will be driving this work forward, and I'm really pleased that he's agreed to do that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're noting the appointment of Councillor Wearmouth as Deputy Leader and the Cabinet as there. Councillor Dickinson, you have your hand up.
Just a query for the Leader. Is the new Deputy Cabinet position on top of the 4 that you've already got, or instead of one of the others?
Well, we currently have 3 Deputy Cabinet positions. 2 are filled. This is going to fill the 3rd position.
Thank you for all that clarification. Point 8, we move on to agenda item 8 on page 57 of the agenda, which is firstly, if you are looking at an online version, I understand that Appendix B, page 61 to 64 is missing, which is the proposed terms of reference for the Grievance Committee. However, if you are looking at a paper copy, then you will have those pages in there. So it's not online, but it should be in your paper copy, page 61 to 64. But I think most of us are working on paper for this meeting. Without further ado, I pass over to Councillor Wearmouth to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll remain seated just so I can see the small text in terms of the recommendations. Hopefully this is a relatively straightforward paper. As I understand, it's been through the Constitutional Working Group in various forms. The recommendations are clear in the report, so I will just run through them. The first is to appoint the committees, numbers of members of committees and chairs for committees set out in Appendix A. Appoint, and then the second one appoints and approves the number that the terms of reference, of the proposed Grievance Committee, and makes consequential amendments to the terms of reference to the Staff Appointments Committee and Employment Appeals Committee set out in Appendix B. 3, appoints ungrouped members to committees of the Council, and 4, delegates to the Monarch Officer responsibility to appoint members of committees on the nomination of their respective group leader. And I won't go further than that and perhaps open up to any questions.
It was just a quick point on the proposed terms of reference for the Grievance Committee. There's I think there's 6 points where it uses the word should, and I would just like to ask that we review that and change that, because the use of the word should in a document like this, I think, leaves things a little bit open. So, for example, where we've got... Sorry, I'll try and move a bit closer to the microphone. I'm trying not to bend over as well. So, where it says, for example, the page 61. So, if the Chief Executive or Chief Officer believes that they have a grievance regarding their employment, it should be raised initially with the monitoring officer. For example, that's one of the points. To me, that represents something that's good practice rather than something that must happen, and it leaves open to for the person raising that grievance to actually take a different route, and then arguably say, well, actually, it just says that I should do that, and I felt that I didn't want to do that in that circumstance. And I think we just need to be a little bit clearer in something like this about the actual process that we're going to follow. Thank you.
So essentially, Councillor Ferguson, are you saying where it says should, we should be saying will?
Almost.
Okay. Right, so I'll go to the proposer and seconder on that one.
I'll take some advice from the monitoring officer in the first instance, just to make sure, but I'm relatively content with it in terms of there should be as little ambiguity as is practical.
Chair. Councillor Ferguson, I hope you can hear me. The process is the JNC process, and it should. However, if somebody does feel they don't want to go, there is also the filter process with the Director of HR. So there's 2 people involved. So this is the statutory process that we're adopting, that's been agreed by the JNC and good practice guidance by ACAS. However, if the Chamber wishes to change that then, Chair, you can take that as an amendment, but this is good practice.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Dale. Have your hand up.
Thank you. Can I just mention about the appointments of members onto committees? And I just would like, I think probably it's the monitoring officer who it says is responsible to appoint members of committees on the nomination of their respective group leaders. And it was just to look at the dismissal committee and the appeals committee, and to ensure that we don't have an overlap of names on these committees, because when I look down, I think, well, actually that doesn't look very good to the public that we've actually got somebody on dismissal. They're also on the appeals committee. And so I think, can I ask you that you look at all those committees, especially to do with staffing, because it's very sensitive, to ensure that we have no duplication running across, so we don't get the wrong person standing there and saying, oh, well, actually, what are you doing on the appeals committee because you've already been on so-and-so. You've got to make sure that it's very clear.
I'm going to go straight to the monitoring officer on that one, if that's okay.
Sorry?
Go straight to the monitoring officer on that one, if that.
Sorry?
Go straight to the monitoring officer on that one.
Chair, Councillor Dell has raised a good point. It has been noted in the report that there should not be an overlap of members that actually sit on the Grievance Committee and members that sit on the Employment Appeals Committee.
Yeah, but also there are some committees where there is duplication on two committees already, and I think they should be reviewed. So I leave that in your capable hands as the delegated officer to do that, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dickinson, have your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Just in relation, I did raise it on page 31 in the previous minutes, but in relation to the points here, we've raised it a number of times now in the Constitution Working Group. And on page 31 of the minutes of the last council, I did raise that we hadn't had a response properly around the consultation of the staff involved in this. And actually, on page 68, it now refers to it not being needed. But in the Constitution Working Group, when we had a discussion, it was felt that that was something that the HR Director and the Monitoring Officer was going to go away and look at. I checked the minutes to make sure that that was the case. So I just wondered what had changed from the consultation being required to now not being required, if we're following a national model.
Chair, Councillor Dickinson, you're quite right. At the Constitution Working Group, this was a point raised by you, and actually it was a very good point, because it got the officers to look at the pay policy, the inconsistency in the pay policy, also got officers to look at the terms and conditions of our officers, namely the chief officers and deputy chief officers. And actually page 68 in the position statement does actually say that this process is not a change in the terms and conditions of the staff, therefore it does not require formal consultation. However, the HR Director has decided that she will actually informally consult with any officers that are affected. So the proposals are set out at page 68, ensuring that all staff, where we are going to change our terms in reference to the JNC, will be notified, although legally it's not a consultation because there's no change in their terms and conditions. I hope that satisfies your question, Chair.
It does indeed. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any further questions before I move to debate? Councillor Hill.
Thank you. I actually have had some meaningful conversations today which has cleared this up a bit more. The one thing that's still concerning me, I don't understand the rationale why 4 members of the Cabinet have to be on the Grievance Committee. In fact, I would suggest that any complaints, grievances and so on, it would be better for new councillors, in fact, who are less. So, sorry, I'm making a point in the question. That's perfectly valid for me to do, Chairman. Well, I'm making a point and it's very obvious what my question is. What is the rationale behind it being 4 Cabinet members? Because I would suggest that it should be almost the opposite, but certainly should not be designated that it should be 4 Cabinet members.
Was there a question in that? I don't know if there was a question in that. But yeah, if you want to answer.
Sorry, Chairman, the question was, what's the rationale? I don't know why you're being cagey about this.
No,
What's the
excuse me,
rationale
I'm not being
between
cagey about
four
anything.
cabinet
I'm
members
simply asking what the
being
question
on
was.
this?
I'm
So
happy to...
that's the question.
Chair, through you.
I'm not being cagey about anything.
You're being cagey. I'm making a point and asking you a pretty sensible question.
I was just simply asking for clarification on your question. And you've got...
You're not. You're being objectionable. I don't know why.
No, it's just getting into
I don't know why. It's
conversation,
a
isn't it,
totally
Councillor
valid point
Hill?
in question.
Can we move to the... I think someone's gleaned a question.
I'm happy to answer the question, which is ultimately the people that we put on committees are the responsibility of the leader of the council in the case of the Conservative Party, and that's how we'll do it.
It says that has to be 4 cabinet members. I'd be quite content, obviously, for it to be proportionate and Councillor Sanderson to choose the members of the Conservative Party. What I don't understand is the rationale between why it is designated that it has to be members of the cabinet.
Right, you press your button about asking to come through the chair, but I'll let it go, and I think the monitoring officer wants to speak.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hell, yes, we did have a good conversation just before we came in earlier, and we did talk about this. There's 2 things here. One is the Grievance Committee. Its establishment of Grievance Committee has been recommended that there is a membership of 5, and that 5 will be made up of the proportional representation as was agreed by full council in March. That you are also, I think, and do confirm this, are talking about the Employment Appeals Committee, which is a pool of 20, and there will be a proportionality of 5 members to be drawn into hearing any appeals, and they will also be proportionally representative. The actual pool of 20, if you look at the Establishment Committee's Appendix A, does actually state that it would include 4 members. This is something that this council agreed, and you are agreeing it today. By all means, again, Chair, it's up to this council if they wish to continue with that, but it is a practice that you have continued with. The establishment of the Grievance Committee is new, and that's what's recommending 5 members and not a pool of 20.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions, or can I move to debate? Don't have any more questions. Does anyone have any debate on this? Can't see anyone there. So, shall I pass to Councillor Wearmouth? Sum up?
Thank you. I won't take time to sum up other than to say thank you. Hopefully you support this now.
Ask, are we moving this on the basis of what's written there, or the change in of...
Of course. So my suggestion would be, having had the information from the monitoring officer, we probably will leave it as should, unless Councillor Ferguson wishes to pick up that point.
No, I'm happy with the answer from the monitoring officer. Thank you.
Okay. On that basis, I want to move to a vote on this, on the recommendations set out on page 57.1 to 4. Can I ask all those in favour to show their hands, please? Any against? Any abstentions? 4. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Right. I then go to the next item, which... Right. Item 8 is the report of the monitoring officer, establishment of committees, and point 1 of that is page 57 to 68. And I think this is for Councillor Wearmouth to propose. However, I'm just going to say one thing on the Health and Wellbeing Board. It currently says that Councillor Flux down as the chair. I wish that to be changed to Councillor Paul Ezzell-Shelvin, and he will take my place on that committee. So just to note that wasn't picked up in the original report. We'd wish that to occur. So without further ado, I'd go to Councillor Wearmouth.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this is something that we do every year, and hopefully it isn't controversial. I'll move to the recommendations. It's recommended that the Council appoints the committees, numbers of members of committees and chairs of committees as set out in Appendix A. 2, appoints and approves the terms of reference for the proposed Grievance Committee. Am I on the right page here?
Yeah. It's page 303.
303, sorry. Which one is it? My apologies. Hang on. What page?
It's Appendix A, pages 303, and they're also circulated around the chamber.
My apologies. Hang on.
Actually, you can't get the help these days,
No, absolutely. So it's so if you look back to the agenda, my apologies. It's to appoint chairs, and if you look to Appendix A, and there's a handout as well that's been provided. It will be in accordance with the lists that are in there.
Okay, so I think we're doing... Followed that right. We're doing 8.1 and 8.2 together. Yeah, 8.1's done. Beg your pardon. 8.2 we're on. Yeah, Councillor Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. I'm really struggling to hear, and I don't have a hearing problem. Could I ask, if councillors are speaking, could they please try to project their voices? Sorry, Councillor Wearmouth, but I didn't catch a word of that.
No, I appreciate that. I was struggling to hear from where I am. So if we can all project our voices, all move the microphone nearer if you need to, any of that business, if we can do that. So what I will do on that point, we've had, Councillor Wearmouth has presented that. Do we have a proposer for that report? I've got Councillor Watson proposing.
Sorry, no, well, we'll start again on that bit just to make sure that members can hear in the back. So this is the second part of this bit in it, establishing committees and appointing chairs and vice chairs, and it's as per Appendix A, which you might have got a handout as well, I think, which has got some updates, and Councillor Flux has added one further update, I think, to that report, and he will just, which was as he was introduced. Would you like to just repeat that one, Councillor Flux, for the avoidance of any doubt?
So what I'll be looking for a proposer on is this report with the Health and Wellbeing Board, Councillor Flux amended to Councillor Paul Ezel-Shelvin. Watson proposed that. Did I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gordon-Stewart will second. Are we all okay with that? Yeah, I've got Councillor Dickinson.
Well, it's not often, Chair, that we hear Labour members asking to hear more from Councillor Wearmouth, so we'll enjoy the moment. Anyway, just to reaffirm that this isn't the final list, but we have submitted the final list, and subject to usual leader discussions for change.
Absolutely, and if there needs to be changes throughout the year, we'll get those done in the usual way. So I think I'll go to that vote again. All those in favour, please show. I think that's pretty okay. I think we've agreed that. Right. I'll go to the next item, which is item 9, which is a report of the interim senior service director, outside appointments to outside bodies. I'll go over to Councillor Wearmouth to present on this one. It should be fairly straightforward.
Thank you. 1 second whilst I find the page.
Honest. 69, old chap.
So, actually, Business Chair, it's your paper, but I'll happily present it if you want.
Pardon, my briefing note is wrong. This is my paper, page 69. This is the report of recommendations that Council agree the nominations to outside bodies, and that Council note the position of the North of Tyne Combined Authority and North East Combined Authority and North of Tyne Combined Authority Joint Transport Committees, and the rest of what's said there. Yes, Councillor Dickinson.
Just a quick point, Chair, to say that some of these committees, including the Combined Authority and the Police and Crime Commissioner, will of course be subject to regional proportionality change after Thursday's elections, where of course Labour will take more places.
That's very brave talk the day before an election. Very, very brave. Yes, Councillor Wearmouth.
I shall not make the comments I was going to make. Thank you.
We'll stop everyone's sweepstake for Thursday, and we'll get on and say, can I have can someone move approval of those for me? Proposer, please. Proposed by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wearmouth. All those in favour? Agreed. Thank you very much for that. I go to the next item, which will be item 10, And this one was Councillor Wearmouth. It's the consider the report of the recently convened independent remuneration panel, decide if any or all of its recommendations should be adopted. And Councillor Wearmouth, I pass over to you to present this report.
Thank you very much, Chair. Hopefully, members have had the chance to read through the report. I will run through just at the front page the key issues that the panel have recommended. This is a panel that is independent of this council. Councillors aren't sitting on it. We are joined indeed by a member of the chair of the independent panel, who's waving across from the side of the room there, who's led this work, and we're very grateful for the time and effort that they have taken to go through this. In terms of what the panel is recommending, it is that the basic allowance for members be maintained at its current level at the start of this year, index-linked. Second, the panel be authorised to give further consideration to levels of special responsibility allowance as part of the next review of members' allowances. The third one here in terms of key issues, a special responsibility allowance of 1/3 the value of a cabinet member's special responsibility allowance be attached to the 3 deputies, this at the present time being £4,950 and from the date of the annual council meeting on the 4th. There's a fourth one here which was news to me. I wasn't aware of this, that there are broadband allowances potentially for some members. That was something that I knew nothing about. I would support the position in a future review, which is where this would be looked at, that that not be continued. I think that broadband is something that surely that every household has as part of their everyday cost of living, and I don't really understand if that's been different in the past. Maybe there's been special circumstances. That in the future that a review of the parental leave policy take place, and that will be at the next review, and the panel be authorised to carry out a more considered and detailed review of members' allowances in time for the full council on January 2023. And the panel understands that this would then feed into the budget setting process for the next municipal year. And that is the bulk of the paper in any case. Does anybody have any questions?
I'll ask for a proposer first and then a seconder. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Gordon Castle, seconded by Councillor Veronica Jones. Now I'll move into any questions. Councillor Dickinson, then Councillor Dale.
I was just querying, I like the independent remuneration panel. I like the fact it has no member involvement, and I think, you know, we just normally accept its recommendations, which is the right thing to do. I just wanted to clarify, though, in terms of point 3, that we've budgeted for these 3 extra paid positions, or whether we're using the money from somewhere else, just to make sure that the members' budget is not overspent.
An answer to this one.
Sure, I'm happy to answer that one. So we're not taking up the position of Deputy Business Chair, which carries a reasonable size allowance. I can't quite remember what it is. 9,999, I'm told over my shoulder here. I don't know how many pence after that. So I think that there's a slight additional cost from having the 3, but it's a very marginal one, Councillor Dickinson, by comparison to what it might have been otherwise.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you. Just about the broadband, I think probably I did mention this, maybe it was being misrepresented what I actually said or meant, was that actually some members don't get good broadband at all, and it's an extra cost. The council can deliver that. However, in the meantime, other people are paying for that to get the extra broadband. So basically, some people aren't getting broadband, proper broadband, and you can't download, it flicks off, it flicks on, and everything else. The council have put something in for me now. It's been 5 years I've had to fight for it, and I now have broadband, which is appalling, actually. In the meantime, I've been paying. It doesn't matter. I'm not worried about the cost. What I am worried about is that everybody is treated fairly, and actually everybody gets broadband they require, because if they don't get it, these are outlying areas. Councillor Horncastle will know some outlying areas that don't have any. A lot of people don't have 5G or anything else like that. So the council has got, you know, it really needs to consider all members, and not just those who are quite local. It's got to be against, and especially those in the rural areas. I know Councillor Riddle has his goes off and on sometimes with Zooms and goodness knows what. All kinds of people have different problems, and they need to address that, please. And whether it be that you actually say to the member, you know, you address this and we'll pay, fine, but it's got to be addressed.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So that's why it's being considered in the next review. And if people, if members have got any particular views that they wish to share with the panel who are going to consider that, then we would welcome that. At the end of the day, you know, I wouldn't want anybody not to be in contact or incontactable mostly. But in 99% of cases, it is, in my opinion, an everyday household expense, and we shouldn't be expecting the taxpayer to supplement other than maybe in the most extreme circumstances.
Okay, any further questions on that? No, it's been proposed and seconded. It's proposed by Councillor Castle, seconded by Councillor Jones. Can I show any debate on that? I don't think though. So, show of hands, those in favour? That's agreed. Thank you. I'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is to update members regarding the new model code of conduct prepared by the LGA, and to present to Council a new draft code for its consideration as set out on page 81 to 108. Councillor Wearmouth, you're presenting this report.
Thank you very much, and hopefully no one's fed up of listening to me yet today. In terms of this, hopefully it's a straightforward piece of work and a straightforward agreement from members. Ultimately, the LGA has drawn up a model code for councils to consider using across all parts of England and Wales, I believe it is. It is logical, it's clear and easy to follow, it abides and reflects the Nolan principles, and it's probably an awful lot more straightforward for members of the public to use, access and understand in terms of them holding councillors to account if they feel that they need to make some form of complaint, rather than leafing through endless pages of our own constitution to try and understand where they would put their issues against in terms of member conduct. I don't propose to do anything other than to summarise the recommendations that are in front of you, which is to adopt the code in its entirety, which is what I would propose. You could adopt the code in part, of course, or you could choose not to adopt the code at this stage, but I would hope that it would be straightforward.
Before I go into any questions, is it a point of clarification? Or is it
just a point of clarification? I just wanted to double check with the monitoring officer. Anybody who's got a code of conduct open to them can vote on this? Because we're kind of changing the process that somebody might be in, I guess.
Chair, through you, yes, they can, Councillor Dickinson, because previous complaints that are ongoing will still be subject to the code of conduct that's in place now. If Council choose to adopt this, I hope you can hear me, if Council choose to adopt this today, then any new complaints will be, as of from today, dealt with under this code. So there may be a period that we have two codes in transition, and possibly the third one with the NALC code that parish councils use as well.
Okay, Councillor Morford, do you have a point of order? Or is it a question? Right, I'm going to take a proposal first and I'm going to come to questions. Do I have a proposer for point A to adopt in its entirety from the floor? So Councillor Dickinson's proposed that. Well, I'll take Councillor Wearmouth to second that. Okay, Councillor Morford, have you got a question?
Thank you. Just a quick question about Masonic lodges. It says on page 84 that membership of organisations such as Masonic lodges would need to be declared if they were a body which has charitable purposes. So I'm just wondering if either the monitoring officer or anyone else might be able to tell me how many Masonic lodges there are in Northumberland and which ones have charitable purposes.
I'll pass the monitoring officer. I don't suspect the monitoring officer is going to be able to answer that.
Chair, through you, Councillor Morfett, I'm sorry, I don't know. But I do know this question did come up as the paper set out from the Constitution Working Group. We did do some research and talked to the trainer that provided the training to the council before I arrived, who did clarify Masonic lodges were subject to charitable status locally, and only you would know if you belonged to that lodge if it was a charitable status, and there you would need to declare it. We have written to the LGA for a response. We haven't had anything. If Chair, Councillor Morfett, would like us to do some research as the monitoring officer team, we'll be happy to do so.
I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll leave that there. I suspect that's something that could almost change at the stroke of a pen if they decide to organise themselves differently or what have you, but that's a side matter. Councillor Hill.
Thank you. Just to pick up on that point, at the Constitutional Working Group, by a majority, we did say that we believe that Masonic lodges should be declarable, and that seemed to be the weight of evidence that they should. We all declare all sorts of things. I declare I'm a member of a bowling club. I declare that I'm a member of I was a committee, my former school in Scotland. You can't possibly think of any reason that would impact my counterwork. What's people's problems? Why not declare it? Why don't we declare it? Particularly as these are groups that swear oaths of allegiance to each other. So I think it's particularly pertinent that they should be brought into line with everything else. But if we could seek more legal advice on that, that would be helpful.
Okay, I think the question was to seek more legal advice, I suppose. Yeah, fine. Okay, right. I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Hill, from what I understand, it was resolved at Constitution Working Group as set out on page 84, subject to doing some research, which the officers did, as explained to the Chamber. We did approach the LGA, we haven't had a response. We did go back and looked over the training that was provided, where it was alluded to that the trainer had said Masonic lodges should be declared. However, the response has come back is only if they are charitable status. For clarification, Councillor Hill, are you recommending that this chamber accepts an amendment to the recommendation that they include in the Code of Conduct that anybody that belongs to a Masonic lodge actually declare that as in their register of interests? So I think, Chair, for purposes of clarification, maybe that would be wise.
Yes, I would actually like to propose that. Yes, I would.
I'm probably going to need a seconder for that. I'm seeing Councillor Morfett. I'll go for. Thank you. Okay, so do we need to want to debate this issue anymore?
The amendment.
Does anyone wish to debate the amendment to include the Masonic Lodge point which was made? Can't see anyone who does want to.
Can I have a name vote as well, Chair?
Well, I'll get to that. Bear with me. Councillor Dodd.
Surely, in that working group, we said, let's have the legal advice from the LGA. So surely, before we change policy on the hoof, as it were, we should get that legal advice and then discuss or decide if we are going to have some sort of motion or whatever. I would feel far happier with that. I'm neutral on this. I don't really mind either way, but if it's to be declared and the advice that comes back from the LGA says that, I'll go with it. But I think we're just putting the cart before the horse until we get that advice. Thank you.
There's no legal advice that says you can't do it, and in fact more and more councillors are doing it and being advised. I've made a proposal, I've seconded it. If people, one of the reasons people are going to vote against or abstain is they think they need more advice, but there's no advice that you shouldn't do it, and I've made a proposal that's been seconded.
Yeah, thanks. This topic has come up a number of times. I think in the last, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, it's been back and forth and back and forth. And when I've read up about it online, there's been councils that, I don't know, has there not been legal opinion or something that's been expressed to councils that have tried to implement this? It was part of, I think Eric Pickles had some comment on it at some stage or another. So I don't know. I'm pretty much the same as Councillor Dodd. I couldn't really care either way, but I'd rather that it was legally sound and that we didn't adopting the sort of the model procedure of the LGA. I'd rather have the LGA's advice or someone's advice, and for the sake of the fact that we're going to be back here in July, we can work it out in July. And in the meantime, my preference, if we're debating the point, would just be to accept the model procedure and then amend it in the 4th of July, whenever it is.
Councillor, can I bring Councillor Dickinson and then Councillor Ferguson? Councillor Dickinson.
Oh, do you not want me to speak now because I was the proposer, so I'd be summing up?
Okay, fine. Beg your pardon. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a bit of clarity, really. So are we discussing about changing it from it saying, like, you have to declare that you're a member of a Masonic Lodge with charitable status, and actually just dropping that charitable status and saying that just if you're a member generally? Because it doesn't seem like that big a change. I mean, I imagine the charitable status bit probably covers most Masonic Lodges anyway, so I think it seems like a very minor amendment, and I can't see anything, but I just wanted to clarify that that's that change.
I've been advised to ask Councillor Hill to clarify on that one as the mover of the amendment.
Given the only advice that's been received that it's Masonic Lodge with charitable status, which I actually believe covers all or almost all of them, I'm happy for that wording to be included in the proposal. Probably is anyone who is a member of the Masonic Lodge probably should declare an interest when this goes to vote, which has been proposed and seconded. I'm asking for a vote for it to be name vote as well.
So I'll come to that on the name vote once we get there. Still people with hands up. Councillor Wearmouth.
Sorry, can I just clarify? So Councillor Hill's saying that that if they have charitable status, then they're declarable. That's what I understood from that comment.
If you're a member of a Masonic Lodge with charitable status, which I think includes all of them, so that's like saying if you're a football club with footballers, but I'm happy for that wording to be put in because that matches the legal advice that's been received. So if anyone, sure there's going to be wriggle room to say my Masonic Lodge isn't a charity, well, we can have that, but I think there's no reason, because the legal advice we had, to not have those words in it.
I'm going to bring Councillor Daly in because he hasn't spoken. But I will. Can I take the point of order?
Oh, sorry. The point of order is just make sure I'm going back to the report correctly. But the comments from the working group, I would have thought that we're adopting these anyway, or am I misunderstanding? Why are we amending something that was already stated in the report? Can I just understand if the amendment still is necessary?
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's what it already says. That's what it already says. I think what Councillor Hill is trying to say is what Councillor Ferguson said. If you're a member of a Masonic Lodge, full stop. That's it. That's what we're saying, for clarity. But that's how I'm reading it. I think that's how Councillor Ferguson read it. That's how most of the people I'm sitting around read it. So can we just get clarity?
Right.
Is it with charitable status or a member of a Masonic Lodge, full stop?
Without status.
I have to go back to the proposer of that amendment. If you could stand up, it'd be appreciated as well.
Right. I'm going to keep it very simple then. I do not see any reason, we haven't got any legal advice whatsoever that says to not do this. We don't get legal advice whether you should declare your football club or your civic society or your Rotary club or anything like that. So yeah, let's just keep it. If you're a member of a Masonic Lodge, you need to declare that interest. If people don't agree with that, vote against. But that's the proposal, and it's been seconded.
So specifically, is there any way you could specifically say what you're changing to the wording? So I think that make it a lot easier to.
If you're a member of a Masonic Lodge, you need to declare that interest. Like every...
think we've got clarity of what's being proposed there. It's an amendment.
Can we take Lynn?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, they've just responded this afternoon. The LGA just responded this afternoon. Didn't they?
Right. That's fine. I don't need to say that right now. I'm just confused. Right. So we've got an amendment there. It's been proposed and seconded, that amendment. It's been, right, I need to see 20% of you to agree to a name vote there. Right. I think I've got agreement for a named. I think that's enough there.
Well, we need to know that. We don't know what it says.
Right. I do understand there's been a response back from the LGA, probably right now. I don't know why that's become right now, whether that's a coincidence or whether thousands of people are watching this at the LGA online. But I just need to note that that's come in. I don't know what it says, so how I can't. Bring Lindsay in.
Yeah.
Lindsay, one of our legal officers, wish to speak here.
Am I right to sit? Otherwise the laptop might end up on the floor. Yeah, just to clarify, I've just had a look at my laptop. There's an email from Neil, one of my fellow deputy monitor officers, who got in touch with the LGA. So he asked them the question, and they have agreed with the advice that was given by our team, which was that if the lodge carries out charitable work, it could come within other registrable interests. So it's only if it carries out charitable work that it is declarable.
Right. I'll repeat it. The LGA basically said you would only have to declare if it was a charitable work. That was the advice that came back. So, on the basis of that, I'll go back to Councillor Hill. I'm sorry, this is going a bit round in circles, and I think I know what the answer is going to be. But
it is bizarre, actually, something like this, that you're suddenly getting all these calls from people. I'm surprised there's going to be people running to the chamber. I've asked for a vote. I've asked for a name vote. It's been voted. Let's just put it to the vote. And people, I wonder if people might have interest to declare first before voting. But
well, I'll come to that. So, before I move to the vote, then, does anyone wish to declare an interest at this stage?
May I speak?
Yes.
I will declare an interest, and I'll leave it to the monitoring officer to decide whether or not it's appropriate that I take part in this. Now, I am, and I'm going to declare this to everybody and the world watching, a member of a Masonic Lodge. In fact, I was on the front page of Freemasonry today in my mayoral robes. That's how proud I am of it. But there is a problem here, and it's been identified by the proposer here. She doesn't care about whether it's charitable, what the rules say, because members of the Bowls Club, members of the Civic Society, members of the Tennis Club don't have loads of internet conspiracies saying that they meet in secret to take over the world. Unfortunately, and very unfairly, Masonic lodges do. There are cranks out there, and hopefully not in here, who believe that there is some grand conspiracy sending emails to monitoring officers and controlling the world and plotting, which is nonsense. But the problem we've got here is we've got a determined bunch of people who are determined to feed that narrative, to basically unmask the conspirators. Because anybody that declares a membership of a lodge, and just for information, I have no idea who other members are, because to answer one of the original questions, there's probably about 400 lodges in Northumberland. I don't know who's a member of what. We don't all meet in some giant, party. So I don't know who else is a member. I'm not in conspiracy with anyone else that's a member. But unfortunately, some people do believe that. And that is why it's prejudicial. That's why there's so much case law on this. Because if we force people to declare it, then we get internet trolls making up stuff, attacking the integrity of members for joining something which has many purposes. And all of them are lawful, are all decent, and are all not part of conspiracy theories. In fact, I will give you a Masonic secret. you are banned in a lodge from talking about politics or religion. So it has no real bearing, and there is no blood oath to help brothers to get us off parking fines or to corrupt councils. Shame. You know, I know that some people are quite upset, you know, that there's some kind of, you know, if you swear loyalty to the brotherhood, you've got to break the law and do anything. No, specifically, you have to promise not to break the law, promise to follow rules, promise to be decent. So
point of order, Chair. No. Are we all allowed to give declarations that last 10 minutes?
It's a point of order. It's a point of order about the vote. Because if the point of the vote is to unmask members who are members, and then you have to declare you're a member to take part in the vote or not, then you've defeated the object of the vote.
Right.
So that's the question I've got to the monitoring officer.
Right.
Do members have to declare a vote or not? And if they do have to declare, you know, can they take part, or can they vote not take part? Because if everybody gets up and declares they're members, well, the conspiracy is unmasked. The vote is not needed. So I would like that's my point of order, Councillor Dickinson. I'll ask the monitoring officer for a response.
I'm just going to bring the leader in, and then I'm going to come back to you to sum up.
Look, I'm sorry about this, but I am worried about doing a vote like this without all the information in front of us. If you feel strongly that this is something we should look at, then why don't we just do it in July? There's going to be nothing harmed with waiting a few months, and let's get it right, please. I don't want us to fall out about something like this when there's so much other more important things in the world. So please, may I request that we leave this till July, and we'll take it as a report then.
Can I just ask if Councillor Sanderson is actually meaning that we don't agree the new code of conduct, or just that part? Because you know, I actually want this to go forward, and therefore my view would be to take it as it is and come back. But either we actually want to play around with these things about the code of conduct, and you still declare an interest. Sorry, if you are a charity, which it says in here, right? But we agree the code of conduct now because we need it in place. Until we have a code of conduct in place that everybody understands and we actually respect it and it's enforced, then this council is not going to move forward. And we're putting all this back another month or at least 2 months. And at the moment, this council is in confusion. It's upside down. It's got all kinds of problems. And we need this in place. We need to have it in place so we can actually do something and make people respect it and actually move forward. So I suggest that I support Councillor Sanderson on this, that actually we agree it now and come back to agree the full, if we wish to change it to all Masonic members, fine. Can I just say I sat on the LA7 doing audit, and all of the LA7 members, and this is going back 12, 15 years ago, all had to declare an interest then. So it's been going round and round, and this council has never taken it on board or discussed it. And I think it's time. So can I just say I support, we actually passed, I second your proposal to move this now, keeping in about the charitable status. I've got 4 in my area. I know there's one in Amble, I know there's one in Morpeth, I know there's one in Predo. We all know there's loads of them about the charitable status, but actually moving on to other people who are not part of the charitable status at a later date.
Before I bring anyone else in, I'm going to see if I can draw a line under this. It's been proposed by Councillor Sanderson and amended. The amendment has been amended. It's still Councillor Hills.
So, sorry, Chair. The amount of important things in this council and things that are concerning go back to January meetings that have just been nodded through, right? This is a simple amendment, and if you think, no, I don't want to vote for it for whatever reason, I prefer it was, might abstain, I think, do whatever you want, but I proposed it, it's been seconded, we've asked for a name vote, okay? And then whatever happens to this, we go back to the original proposal. And it's really not seemly, and as regards Councillor Bond's point, to say that people shouldn't have to declare an interest because there might be conspiracy theory about that. That is not legitimate. It could be conspiracy about all sorts of things. And the Masons, my grandfather's in the Masonic Lodge. We get flowers every Christmas. They're lovely. They do a lot of good work. But it makes it seem more grubby and underground if they somehow should be seen as an exemption and not declare a membership like we declare everything else. And this is really procedurally unsound because I've had asked for this to go to the vote. Been proposed and seconded. Some people have spoken about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, you have as well, Richard.
Yes, but I'm the proposer and I've been asked to change it several times.
Can I just call a little halt for a second while we just sort out procedural stuff here, and I'm going to come back shortly.
Yeah, so I would come back, if I may, and agree completely with Councillor Dale that I think we should accept the Code of Conduct for all our sakes, absolutely, but ask that the monitoring officer, whoever he or she may be in July, that they bring a report on this particular issue and we will discuss it properly then.
So,
no?
So do you agree, Councillor Sanderson, that we move to Councillor Hill's vote, that you will be voting against it and then put forward another amendment? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, for purposes of clarity for this chamber, there has been an amendment put forward to the recommendation from that corner there, and you do need to listen to that motion, which you have done. Now, there has been a named vote, then you have that named vote. There has been a second amendment laid during the debate. You go back to that first one, then come back to the second one.
Okay, that's fine. Councillor Dickinson, did you wish to sum up?
If we are going back to the first, then I'm happy to sum up on my proposal for the outline in this documentation. What I actually had my hand up for, which may surprise Councillor Bourne and others, is advice on whether somebody who has worked with the Masonic Lodge on charity events and received various things for their community should declare an interest on that such vote. But if we are back to the beginning of the Code of Conduct as outlined by the LGA, then I will sum up. Oh, well, I didn't second the amendment.
Fine, I beg your pardon. It was Councillor Lee, wasn't it? Councillor Morford. Sorry, I saw you both with your hands up. Did you wish to sum up, Councillor Morford?
I'd like to say that unless there's a legal reason why members have to declare an interest at this stage, then I don't see any reason why they should have to.
Thank you for that. Okay. Yeah, you can. Well, I think we're happy to go to. I think we're happy to move to this amended. Let's.
Point of order, just to clarify, as I have made a declaration publicly, can I take part? What's the legal? I can. Yeah.
Okay. And does anyone else wish to put a declaration in before we move there?
Well,
just to clarify, those that haven't made the same declaration but may not wish to, put it this way. If you to vote on this, do you have to make a declaration or not? That's the question.
If you are a member.
If you are a member of the Masonic Lodge.
No, Chair, for purposes of clarity, you're voting on adopting a code with recommendations of membership, of directorships, of lots of different organisations. This is adopting a code. Therefore, you'd all be recommending that I belong to this directorship or that directorship. That's not the point. The point is there has been an amendment put. There's 2 amendments that have been put. The first amendment that's been put is by Councillor Hill, seconded by Councillor Morfett. That is that we would like this chamber to vote on, a named vote, to actually take the word charitable out. If you belong to a Masonic Lodge, it's a Masonic Lodge, to take out the word charitable organisation, which is, if I may say, against the advice of the LGA and against also the advice of the trainer that gave you the training way back in October. The law states that you only need to register your interest in Masonic Lodge if it's a charitable status. However, an amendment has been put forward. There's been 2 amendments put forward. You can discuss 2 amendments at the same time. Now, you can actually choose to take the vote for that one and then choose to take the vote for the second one.
Councillor Carty, is it point?
I'm sorry, I've just got a question, right? I run a charity. I'm in the process of seeking some money from the Masons. I've had money from them before. Where do I stand? Can I vote on this or not?
I think it's going to be fairly similar to what was said. Councillor Daly, you had a question.
We've had summaries, Chair. We've closed.
Chair, if I could come in as a point of order rather than as a direct question. So anyone who knows me for many years will know that I've been in favour of any Mason declaring that. That's fine. I declare I'm a member of Friends of Hortonburn. Group of local people go around litter picking. It's fine. I declare it. But what I'm hearing in the chamber today, Councillor Carty, others, have got links, direct or tenuous links, potentially with funding from Masonic lodges. And don't doubt they do a lot of really good stuff, okay? So what I just want to clarify is this as a point of order. We've had the leader say to us that if we get the code of conduct through, that you are prepared to bring a substantive report to July, where there will be, I assume, a free vote, where people can or go get some pre-advice on if they get funding from their local lodges or whatever, in order that when they come to that meeting, we can make an informed choice. Now, Councillor Hill and others know my view on this. I think that option that the leader is suggesting may be sensible, given some of the nuances, because even Councillor Dickinson's inferred that he might potentially regard himself as conflicted with funding from these lodges. So I think if that is going to happen, that report should also include some advice to members in advance that if an organisation they work for or get funding from, does it conflict them? Does it prevent them from taking part in a vote? Because we need to bottom this out, but we need to do it properly. And so on that basis, the assurance from the leader that this will 100% come back, it'll be a 100% very clear report for members then to make a really clear, informed decision. I am not a member of the Masons. They probably wouldn't even ask me to join. So I have no vested interest in this, I'll make it clear. Even though I'm still Councillor Board definitely wouldn't have me in there. It's like Groucho Marx, why would I want to be a member of any organisation that would have me in it? Right, so all I would say is, I think on the basis of the assurance from the leader, I would be minded to support that on the basis of a free vote with a substantive report coming back in July. That was my point of order-ish.
Chair, can I have a point of order? This is just nonsense. I've summed up.
Well, I was just wanting to say,
I've rejected the amendments as the proposer of this amendment. If people, have a debate, but it's just really weird that people are like, oh, we don't even want to discuss it or have a vote on it. Let's just have the vote. People
well, I was just going to say, I was going to
Please.
sum up and say we've had a lot of discussion here. Do we want to move to the vote? But you decided to make that comment. But we'll go to, I think it's now time to go to a named vote. We did have a show of hands for that. So I think it's a named vote on Councillor Hill's amendment. Is that correct? And I'm going to just pass the microphone over. Councillor Jones, you've got a point of order? Or?
Could I just ask that we have the? Could I just ask that we have the amendment again, please? I might be having a bad day, but I'm struggling to understand, and I'm afraid every time Councillor Hill explains it, I get more confused. Right, okay. Could you please?
Do you wish to? I think that was a very reasonable request for a bit of clarity there. Do you wish to clarify, Councillor Hill? Okay, well...
So you better tell us how we're supposed to vote, yes or no, or what is this?
Again, I would suggest you want to vote against this one.
Against or against? Does the monitoring officer want to say that?
Chair, through you, I do, Councillor Hill and everybody else in the chamber, it may help Councillor Jones if I repeat what I think is the amendment proposed and seconded by Councillor Morfitt there, is that we adopt the Code of Conduct as it is set out in the papers. However, with regard to declaring whether you are a member of a Masonic lodge, rather than it being declared where it's a charitable status, you are voting yes or no that you remove the word charitable status and you put in the box that if you're a member of a Masonic lodge, it will be declared in your register of interests. Councillor Hill and Councillor Morfitt, could you please clarify?
Thank you, yes, that will do.
With that, I think I can move over to the named vote, so I'll let Lindsay lead on that. Councillor Esel-Shelvin, what's his...
I completely understand the amendment by Councillor Hill, but we seem to be talking about a requirement that we need to declare interest before we vote. Does it still stand?
No. That's for any individual to decide, so I'm quite happy for us to...
Because my grandfather was a Mason, everybody was a Mason, so I don't want to...
Lindsay, the name vote, please.
Okay, Councillor Ball.
Abstain.
Councillor Bourne. Councillor Bainan.
Against.
Councillor Bowman.
Abstain.
Councillor Carr.
Against.
Councillor Carty.
Abstain.
Councillor Castle. Councillor Cessford.
Against.
Councillor Chicken.
Against.
Councillor Clark.
Abstain.
Councillor Dale.
Against.
Councillor Daly.
Not a Mason, but against.
Councillor Darwin.
Against.
Councillor Dickinson.
Abstain.
Councillor Dodd. Councillor Dunbar. Councillor Dunn. Councillor Eschel Shelvin. Councillor Fairless Aitken.
As a Masonette, I'm for this.
Councillor Ferguson.
Against.
Councillor Flux.
Against.
Councillor Foster. Councillor Gallagher.
Abstain.
Councillor Grimshaw. Councillor Hardy.
Against.
Councillor Hill. Councillor Horncastle.
Against.
Councillor Humphrey.
Against.
Councillor Hunter.
Abstain.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Against.
Councillor Jackson's not here. Councillor Jones.
Against.
Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Lang. Councillor Lee.
For.
Councillor Mather. Not here. Councillor Morfitt.
For.
Councillor Murphy.
Abstain.
Councillor Nisbet.
Abstain.
Councillor Oliver.
Against.
Councillor Parry. Councillor Patterson.
Against.
Councillor Pauschke.
Against.
Councillor Purvis. Councillor Reid.
Against.
Councillor Renner Thompson.
Against.
Councillor Richardson.
Abstain.
Councillor Riddle.
Against.
Councillor Robinson.
Abstain.
Councillor Sanderson.
Against.
Councillor Scott.
Abstain.
Councillor Seymour.
Against.
Councillor Sharp. Councillor Simpson.
Abstain.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Against.
Councillor Swinbank.
For.
Councillor Swinburne.
Against.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Thorne. Councillor Towns.
Against.
Councillor Waddell. For. Councillor Wallace.
Abstain.
Councillor Watson.
Abstain.
Councillor Watson. Councillor J. Watson. Sorry.
Against.
Councillor Wearmouth.
Against.
Councillor Wilczek.
Abstain.
There's a second while that's tallied up and it'll be run over to me, so just bear with me. Okay, can I have order in the chamber, please? Okay, in terms of that amendment, there were 8 votes for, no votes, 34 votes against and 21 abstentions, so that amendment has fallen. So what I will go now to is to Councillor Sanderson. Do you wish to do your amendment now to accept the code of conduct? I'll let you speak, probably going to be easier. Losing the will to live here.
Members, I simply want us to accept the code as it's written here, but we will return in July to a special report which will carry a free vote on the whole question of charitable bodies. It not necessarily will be confined to Masonic lodges because there are other combined issues. So let's not just tie ourselves into this strange world of Masonic lodges. It's a much more complicated picture than that. So that's what we'll do. Thank you. If you agree, sorry.
Can I have a named vote, Chair?
Do we have 20% of members who wish that named vote? We don't. So, all those in favour of Councillor Sanderson's? Agreed? Yeah, so that's agreed. Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I just double check, Monitoring Officer? I had made a proposal which was seconded and has not been discussed or voted upon, and Councillor Sanderson's intervened with something completely new to try and steal something from me, and I'm not having it. So withdraw.
I welcome your good nature on this one.
Chair, Councillor Dickinson, through the chair, I think that was missed. So would you like us to go back to your proposal, which was seconded by...
It was seconded by Councillor Wearmouth, and it was a bit of joint working. And it was, he presented his report, I proposed it, he seconded it, and we were all happy, and then Councillor Hill got involved.
The story of this council, isn't it?
Chair.
So it's entirely up to yourself. If you don't want partnership work on code of conduct, which I think is really important, Councillor Sanderson, you don't need to withdraw your bits and pieces, but if you do, we can continue.
It did.
Yeah.
Second amendment.
Yeah.
So do you want me to...
Yeah, you can do, yeah. I mean, just to... I think we can just say that that's agreed. Yeah, if you wish to do legal bit.
Chair, as Councillor Reid has said to the Chamber, Councillor Dickinson, the substantive motion has failed because there was an amendment put by Councillor Sanderson, which was seconded by Councillor Dale. You all agreed. That means that the main substantive recommendation to adopt the code as it is in the report failed, because what you have accepted as the Chamber was an amendment to adopt it but bring back a paper in July, or I think you said July, Councillor Sanderson, with regard to discussing the issues of adopting belonging to charitable status as part of your code of conduct.
Sorry, the procedure wasn't clear, so I didn't vote, and we didn't have a named vote, which we'll now have to go for.
It has been approved, and I did see many Labour members put their hands up to approve that.
That's absolutely fine. They may well have heard something different to what I heard, but that process wasn't followed correctly.
Well, I respectfully disagree, Councillor Dickinson. I'll carry on with the agenda. Right, where are we up to? Councillor Dickinson, that's the second or third little murmuring I've heard. One of them's been a little bit rude to me, I thought, actually, and disrespectful to me as the chair, actually.
Did you want me to put my mic on? I said it was a sorry state of affairs when we don't follow process.
Well, I think we have followed process, so you might disagree with it. I saw a majority of people in this chamber put their hand up quite clearly. Thank you, Chair. Moving on to point 12. report of the Executive Director of Children's Services and Adult Social Care, adopting a new agreed syllabus for religious education. And I think, if I go right, that's reports presented by Councillor Renner-Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. As well as being Member for Children's Services, I am also the Chairman of the Northumberland Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education. Now, religious education is incredibly important, whether you're religious or not. You turn on your TV at night and watch the news, a lot of the problems and solutions in the world have religious backgrounds to them, whether it's the Middle East, Northern Ireland or elsewhere. Therefore, it is important for our children and young people to understand. It is compulsory for local authority schools to provide RE lessons, although there are those that do not, and I wish to reverse that. But as part of that, it's up to the SACRE to write the syllabus for RE. To cut a long story short, we were presented with a number of options for the RE syllabus. We have chosen the one which allows the SACRE to write new modules and change the modules that already exist, to put a Northumberland tint onto the modules, because, as you know, we have a great religious history in this county as the cradle of Christianity for many hundreds of years, and with more recent immigration, we have all sorts of world faiths within the county that we also wish to represent. So the SACRE will get on with that, writing those new modules that we can put into Northumberland schools, and I hope that full council can support it. Thank you.
Can I have a proposer, please? Proposed by Councillor Daly, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Do you have any questions? Councillor Reid.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. First of all, we were just wondering whether, if you're a school governor, you need to declare an interest on this before you vote on it. And what's just occurred to me, sort of a flash of horror went through my mind when I thought that Councillor Renner-Thompson himself would be writing these modules. I'm not sure whether I would be supportive of that. So I was just wondering how, who and which expert or which group of people are going to be writing these modules, because I think it is actually quite important that whatever we do it properly.
Go to Councillor Renner-Thompson and I'll go to the Monitoring.
You doubt my knowledge of Northumberland religious history, Councillor Reid. No, we have a specialist advisor, Kaz Ray, who, first name Kaz, second name Ray, who advises the committee. It is ultimately up to the committee, but she would write the reports and then we would sign them off. And they're made up of multi-party members. The membership is in here.
Then Councillor Reid had the question about school governors and declaring an interest.
Chair, through you, Councillor Reid, it actually does depend where the school governorship is, whether the school that the person is a governor is affected by adopting this syllabus. However, my recommendation is, as it's a policy that's been adopted, it's not an individual school that you're looking at. You don't need to declare it. However, it is a personal decision of yours whether you would want to declare it in case anybody thought you were influenced or coming across as being predetermined or prejudicial. I gave similar advice before the meeting started to other councillors as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more questions? Does anyone want to debate this? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say on record thank you to the committee members of this group who actually were experts in their field and pulled this policy together. And it was nice to see that it did have a Christian heritage to it. And as for the county councillor for Holywell, some people call it Holywell, then there is a significant relevance to where I live, and across the whole of Northumberland there is a relevance to our local Christian heritage, and it was really nice to recognise that, and that's something to champion in Northumberland. And tourism is a very a nice part of life, and tourism is welcome in Northumberland. And our children can now really appreciate the history and the heritage that we have in this county. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been Councillor Dunn. Do you wish to speak?
Thank you. I'm just going to declare an interest in this and I won't be voting. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dunn. It's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? That's agreed. Thank you very much. Go to the next item of the agenda. It's the report of the Head of Housing and Public Protection Statement of Licensing Policy. This is to advise members of the outcome of the consultation regarding the Statement of Licensing Policy as set out on pages 117 to 184. Councillor Horncastle, may I ask you to present the report?
Thank you, Councillor Flux. This may not be quite as interesting as Councillor Bourne trying to take over the world and religion here. It's a bit of a dry matter, but it's something that we've got to do. This is a statement of the licensing policy. It's to advise members of the outcome of the consultation regarding the statement of licensing policy. There's 2 recommendations. Now, what happens is that every 5 years, local authorities are required to publish the statement, the licensing policy. The consultation takes place with the appropriate interested parties. The last one, until this one, was 2015. It was supposed to be carried out, obviously, in 2020, but because of COVID, and obviously having to consult with the entertainment industry and the pub sector, it didn't take place in 2020. It took place in November last year, and it's all in the report, the various people that replied back to the consultation. What I can say is that I know there are a few members in here that, on behalf of parish councils, are a bit concerned that parish councils aren't consulted when a licence goes in their area. Well, there's a simple reason for that, and I'll tell you what that is now, is that, and these parish councils, it's been repeatedly stated that the legislation is different to planning, and that legally we, as the county council, legally we cannot notify parish and town councils of applications, and to do so would be going beyond our statutory powers. So if anybody here today tries to argue, because I'm looking at the few, tries to argue that you should be consulting with the parish councils, the answer is no. If you want to do that, you'll have to lobby the government, not me or the head of house, or Phil Soderquist behind me. So that's it. You've got, it's relatively straightforward. It's a very large document. Makes really good reading. You've got your 2 recommendations, and I'll just put it back to the chair.
Thank you. We've got a proposer of that and seconder. Proposed by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Watson. All those agreed? Yeah, you've declared your interest. Thank you. Thank you, Trevor. All those agreed? Thank you. That's passed. Thank you very much.
It's like you describe licensing as a drawing subject.
Item 14 is correspondence. I do not have any correspondence, so I'll go to item 15, which is questions. And the first question is from Councillor Hill to me, the business chair. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. As business chair, do you accept that it is very poor practice for papers to be distributed during the actual meetings and not circulated to members in advance?
Thank you, Councillor Hill. The provisions of Schedule 12 of the Local Government Act 1972 set out the arrangements for convening meetings of the Council and its committees, and for publication of the agenda and reports. These are contained in the Council Procedure Rules in Part 5 of the Northumberland County Council Constitution. As members will be aware, the Access to Information Rules require that notice is usually given 5 clear days in advance, and that the business to be transacted at a meeting is set out in the agenda convening the meeting. It is best practice for written reports to accompany each agenda item. The Local Government Act 1972 and the Council Procedure Rules provide that in cases of urgency, the Chair can permit additional items of business to be agreed to the agenda, and in such cases a written report accompanying the urgent business will be provided to the meeting. Similarly, if there are new facts or matters which have come to light since the original report was published, it would be best practice for an updated report to be provided to a meeting. Supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you've read out what the procedures are, but not the practice in this council. And are you aware that there's increasing concern that papers have been circulated at meetings, full council as well as committee meetings? And are you aware that members are concerned, for obvious reasons, that they've attended meetings where there's been complex, controversial papers, a dozen pages long, which have not been circulated in advance? Could you give an assurance that as business chair, and I accept, obviously, sometimes there might be a paper, an extra comment on a planning application that might come in late, but if people coming to meetings not aware of what business has been transacted, having complex, and they cannot make good decision-making. So do you agree with that, and will you, as business chair, give a commitment that no council will walk into a meeting and be presented with documents not much smaller than this and expect to digest and make a decision on that? And members of this council from across parties have raised these concerns. I know.
Councillor Hill, you made several points there about things that have happened and reports. If you could want to send me any specifics on that, I'll happily take them. But what I will say is, I always do what I think is in the best interest of this council. And sometimes that will be presenting reports late on. And I think that's entirely sensible. I think it would be silly if we were doing to a letter of a law, we can't have a report, and we was having to call further meetings. I think we'd soon get tired, and I think we'd soon be seen to be rather silly and to be wasting money. And I think, to be honest, I don't agree with that. Thank you, Chair. Question 2, from Councillor Hill to the Leader.
Thank you. Sorry that there wasn't assurance on that quite simple matter.
Can I remind you, I don't get a third answer, so I don't think you deserve a third answer either. So can we please go to the...
Yes, I will
please go
ask
to
my
question 2. Thank
to
you.
the Leader, see if you get on better here. The Leader recently said that he's looking to cut £1 million from the NCC wage bill, quote, by employing full-time staff, mainly senior staff, instead of consultants and interims. What recent progress have you made on this?
Thank you. Significant. Let me just go back to last May. Last May, I said I wanted to have an independent review of the council, which many councils have, and we haven't had one for, I think, 5 or 6 years. I continued to make that request for a number of months, and we've finally got it, and that's the Max Calla review, and we'll get the result of those soon. Similarly, a year ago, and I can remember me saying this, I want to have a review of the senior management structure because I feel that there are too many interims, and I regretted very much that so many full-time staff have left or have been asked to leave over the previous few years. Now, before I go any further, I want to say something about interims, and we have some interims behind me. That sort of sounds rather I don't know, not particularly complimentary, but what I would say is these officers that you see here, I'm hugely proud of, as I am of all our staff, every single one of them. And that's why I have to say quickly, I do regret very much the sort of practice of and habit of some members who continually find it pleasurable to find fault with the council. Because finding fault with the council or finding fault with me, okay, but what you've got to remember, one or two members have got to remember that every time you have a go at the council, every time you think about leaking a document, you're not actually helping anything. You're actually hitting the reputation of this council at a time when we have investors wanting to come here, and you are, most importantly of all, you're hitting the sensitivity of our staff, each and every one of them. So I really would ask that some stop this negative stuff, which we either hear here or some anonymous blogs, although we all know who they are, but these so-called anonymous blogs, so they're too cowardly to put their names behind them, are constantly peddling nasty stuff. And I don't look at anybody in particular. Now, I am making good progress in this because we have to make good progress. I am deeply grateful to our interim officers who have held these positions, as I'm very disappointed that so many good officers have left and required interims to come in. This is a situation we must deal with. We must deal with sensitively, and I've made it quite clear that over the coming year, the budget clearly said that we have to find a saving of £1 million, that will be done without any compulsory redundancies if I can help it. If I can help it. And I will do my very best to make sure that any saving in staffing is carried out voluntarily. It is of great importance to me that our staff know how much we care for them, and I will continue to make it clear to them that that is my absolute priority, as all the members behind me and out there doing the jobs in Berwick, cleaning the streets, emptying the bins, looking after Berwick and all the other counties, all the other county frontline services so well. So, less of the negativity, less of it, if you don't mind, for the sake of a new year at the council, and let's be positive and get behind our staff and congratulate them for all they do. Thank you.
Supplementary, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, and thank you, Leader, for your answer and little speech there. I don't want to dust off my old North Korea analogy, but you seem to think that people aren't entitled to criticise the council. And anyone that knows me, and you've been copied into emails over the years to staff where I've complimented staff when jobs been done. I'll compliment you when good things have been done. I've complimented good things in Berwick. But if there's grounds for criticism, I'll say it. And frankly, there's been plenty of grounds of criticism for the last 2 years and under your administration. And there is such a thing called freedom of speech. And I and everyone else are perfectly entitled to make criticism when it's justified. In regard to the question, do you accept that members of the public who are, as we all know, and we'll all have many examples, are very concerned about paying their bills? And I've got residents contact me daily chasing up the £150 for the council tax. Do you accept that when they look at the transparency page on the NCC, looking at payments being made, and they see, you know, 2 interim officers, £60,000 in 1 month alone, external legal advice, £40,000 in 1 month alone. Do you accept that the public are concerned and would see that these salary bills are excessive? And will you give a commitment to make sure that public money is used sensibly and not wasted?
Supplementary, Councillor Sanderson.
You know, I have to smile. I'm looking at Councillor Dickinson, if I can take you off your phone for a second, Councillor Dickinson. I remember when you sat in that chair and I sat down there. If I'd asked a supplementary that lasted more than about 15 seconds, you'd stop me. Do you remember that? Yes. And they were very good supplementary questions as well. And you knew it. That's why you cut me off. Yes. So, in answer to the supplementary statements, I would say that I share the views of all of us that we want to make sure we have the right staff in the right place, doing the right job at the right rate of pay.
Thank you. Before I go to the next question, I'll just point out that I may choose to disallow any question which is inappropriate or unduly lengthy in line with Rule 9.6 of our Constitution. So I may choose to do that. I didn't do it in that case because I'm a fair person. But
2 lines and 3 lines.
Once again, you know, I sit here and people come forward and there we are. Question 3 from Councillor Taylor to Councillor Riddle. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Riddle, I hope I've got you. I hope you're the right one. So there's been a number of concerns raised to me by residents and visitors following the Easter holidays by people using the footpath from Atley Park to Humford Woods in Bedlington. The path is in a terrible state and I know I've walked it. It needs looked at really urgently. I've raised this before, so could I please have an assurance that this will be a priority for repair before the summer holidays this year, where it's going to be really widely used again? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your question. I'll be quite frank with you, it won't be fully repaired before summer. That's not going to happen. You know, you're saying it's a priority, but it wasn't on your list of priorities for the LTP. What I will say is that we found some money out of this year's LTP to look at it and do a feasibility study, but there's clearly a lot of work that's going to need to be done there. It's going to be a major project, and it won't be done this year. There'll be consents will be definitely needed from the Environment Agency. We'll have to work in the river, etc. You know, at the moment, it is being checked again, and it will be checked regularly to make sure that there is a safe route for people to get past. I understand that it is wide enough for people not to actually walk on the definitive line, and that, you know, we've got to be pragmatic about this. So the answer is it won't be fixed for this summer, but we will keep it in as safe a manner as we can. I don't envisage us having to close it at all, but it's going to be a major project which will have to go in with the other bids for rights-of-way work in next year's LTP.
Supplementary, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that there's a lot of work to be done on there. Is there any way that we can put up some fencing, like temporary fencing, at the places where it's quite narrow? And I'm just thinking about people who have got small children or people who have got children on bikes, and because there is a potential at some part for those kids to go off and into the river. So if we could put some temporary fencing up there, just some kind of warnings or something, that would be great.
Thank you for the supplementary. You know, clearly, you know, officers are looking at this on a regular basis. If they feel that there is a need for safety measures, I'm sure they will be put in place.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, again for Councillor Wearmouth.
Thank you. Can I just start first by saying thank you to the leader. At the last meeting, he agreed to arrange a meeting to talk about Bedlington Town Centre, and he did very quickly. So really appreciate it. Thank you. But my question is around with the agreement of the additional 2 million to ensure the completion of the phase 1 of the Bedlington Town Centre redevelopment. Work seems to have stopped. Do we know when it's going to start again, please?
Councillor Plojai is going to answer that.
Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. That will be a very quick answer. That additional £2 million will allow Advanced Northumberland to sign the contract with the new contractor, and the works is set to be started by the end of the month, this month.
Supplementary, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah. Does that mean that we're going to go past the end of December for the completion date, or will it be completed on time?
I think the works are still on schedule, but we've got Executive Director of Advanced Northumberland here. He may clarify that point if he knows anything. If not, we will provide a written answer to you.
I think Councillor Sanson may have something on that.
Just to say that we've got another meeting with Bedlington members, and you this time. I think it's the 11th of May. Certainly we need to follow up because we've been talking about what we might be able to offer, so we want to discuss that with you. So please don't think that we haven't forgotten about you. That's in your diaries, I think, for next week, I think.
Thank you.
If it's not in anyone's diaries, I'm sure we can sort it out because I can see Councillor Wallace shaking, but there we are. Okay, right. Question 5, Councillor Ball to Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Chair. We've seen the cost of living crisis. It's turned into a cost of surviving crisis for many people. Rents up, including council rents, council tax up again this year, national insurance rising for many middle-income earners, people struggling and people in work having to access support from food banks, and some food banks reporting a new crisis that people who are receiving food can't afford to cook it because they have key meters, and the cost of electric has near doubled, so no electric to turn on the cooker. We as a local authority are having to find more and more year on year to support hard-working families to get by, while the rich get richer and support cut to the worst off. How does Northumberland County Council ensure that tenants are not stuck in a situation that they have a place to live but no standard of living due to rising rents and prepayment meters? And can I meet with the portfolio holder to gain an understanding of how both Northumberland County Council and the arm's length company Northumberland Homes are supporting tenants, and hear what the long-term plans are as we're seeing the situation get worse for people in Northumberland year on year? Thank you.
Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. It's an excellent question. The Council recognises the impact of the cost of living squeeze on residents and is providing support for both prospective and current tenants in a number of ways. With new tenants, we undertake a financial assessment prior to allocation so that the properties that are allocated are affordable. At tenancy sign-up, we also provide welfare support to ensure access to appropriate benefits and grants are received. We also support existing tenants who are struggling and only consider eviction as a last resort. We proactively support those on universal credit, providing advice and setting up payment plans at the start of claims. Our welfare support team last financial year have helped tenants generate an extra £476,000, and we will continue to offer this service to any tenant that is facing financial hardship or needs advice and support. We also provide other assistance, including, as agreed as part of the 22-23 HRA budget, a rent-free week for council tenants, and we operate a council tax hardship payment of up to £200. In addition, we have doubled the size of the discretionary housing payments fund so that we can provide extra targeted help to households across all tenure types that are struggling to pay their rent and other essentials. Alongside this, the Council is working hard to ensure that financial support from central government, such as the £150 energy bill rebate and the £2.5 million household support fund, gets to those households in greatest need. 45,000 payments are expected to be made from the Household Support Fund during the first 6 months of this financial year, including 21,000 to families with children and 13,000 to vulnerable pensioners. Payments will cover a range of essential needs, including shopping vouchers and assistance with energy and water bills. So, on top of that, when I took over this portfolio a year ago, I was absolutely amazed at just what support was behind the scenes for our tenants. I had absolutely no idea. I was just absolutely amazed because I know that eviction is certainly the last resort. So one of the key things you mentioned here is the key meters. Now, it was just last week in one of the cabinet meetings, I was talking about this to the cabinet members, and I am going to take this up with Phil Soderquist next time we have a meet-up, which I think is next week, to get the lowdown on the key meter situation, because I know it is more expensive, and as soon as I've had that information back from him, I will get back to you. And as far as meeting up with you, I would love to meet up with you, Councillor Ball, anywhere you want. So I'll come down to your electoral division, and you can show me round. Right. But joking aside, come down, and by all means, we'll go to some of the people that you're talking about. You know, we'll discuss things on the doors, you know, to actually see what is actually happening. But from the county council's point of view, I honestly believe that our housing department and its officers are doing the best they possibly can.
Supplementary, Councillor Ball.
Thank you. So we also need to discuss the long-term plan for those in work poverty and the root causes, and take action about things that we can do something about. Invest in youth services, be a power for change, and lobby government for the people struggling to make ends meet. Introduce landlord licensing, ensure that we won't just accept free word slogans, but real action. I would like to see Northumberland support the Right to Food campaign and end children going to school hungry and extend free school
Ball,
meals.
I've got lots of members asking where the question is here.
Yeah, would Northumberland support the Right to Food, please?
Councillor.
Support the Right to?
The Right to Food campaign, so kids aren't going to hungry.
Right. Well, I shall discuss that with you when I come down and meet up with you. But getting back, I mean, that was not the supplementary question I was actually expecting from you, but what I will say is that because I have actually seen a lot of changes in Northumberland, as councillors who have been here a long time have. Northumberland has actually completely changed. I was around at the time when there was massive employment in this county, and that was just after the pits were closing, another heavy industry went, and all the towns, especially in the southeast of the county, were in a depressed state. But since then, there's an awful lot happened, and I'm talking in the general terms here for, you know, about the people of Northumberland, how this authority and this administration is actually helping them. Things have changed so much. We went through a budget situation, a meeting, the budget meeting a month or two ago, and we did everything we possibly can in that budget to help people with the rents. There was the free week and everything, which doesn't seem much, but all these little things added up do help. But since then, we've adopted the local plan, and you might think, well, what am I talking about? This local plan is seriously important because the plan and policies we had in Northumberland before the local plan were totally out of date. We now have a modern county that is now attracting inward investment. And there's no magic, there's no silver bullet, no magic panacea, just one thing to put everything right for everybody. You've got to look at the whole picture, starting with education. And look what this authority's done with education. We've built new high schools, some in your area, some in Ponteal and Hexham, and other schools. We've put massive capital investment in. We've had schools that were in special measures, and we're not providing a good service. And now, like Hayden Bridge, for example, that is now providing excellent services, attracting new students to it. The affordable housing thing, our leader, Councillor Sanderson, that was one of his priorities. We've got £48 million. Now, £48 million for affordable housing, I mean, affordable housing is exactly what it says. It's for the people who are in desperate need of, who can't afford housing like some of the rest of us. But that £48 million was never going to do anything unless we had a modern local plan that enabled us to build affordable houses in the rural areas and the coastal areas where you couldn't, where there was no large-scale developments to generate, with the 106 agreements, extra housing.
Castle, I think you might want to round up.
I could go on forever.
You're doing a very good impression of it.
I could go on about the excellent work Councillor Patterson's doing with members of your group. I could talk about Councillor Watson, who's given the assurance that no more libraries will be closed. All these bad things happened under different administrations. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody, but this happened. not happened under this administration. So it's maybe not perfect, but Northumberland is improving vastly, and it is the magic thing is it's a magnet for inward investment, and it may take a few years, but in years to come, you will see the advantage of what is happening, starting with the battery factory, the rail line, and everything else. So let me know when I can meet you, and we'll have a chat.
Question 6 from Councillor Ball to Councillor Plodshire.
Thanks, Chair. It's a welcome sight to see Home Bargains open on the Portland Park development. Is there any news on when the cinema and the other plots will be filled? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. We remain committed to the development of the Portland Park and to securing a cinema as part of the development. Tenders have been received for the cinema and currently are being examined. We are also, with partners in Nashington Town Board, developing a wider levelling up fund bid, which will pull together in a cohesive way the investments the Council is making in the Portland Park and in the new railway station. We expect to have a news to share with members, partners and residents very soon.
Supplementary, Councillor Ball.
Thank you. So, always wanted to do my research. I went on the Real Cinema site last night, and it says 6-screen cinema with 5 premier lounges and 1 luxury Real lounge offering plush sofa seating and table service will open in winter 2023. Then I went on to the Advanced Northumberland site. New cinema and retail complex for Ashton Town Centre is, and how working on behalf of Northumberland County Council, Advanced Northumberland has secured a significant commitment from Real, who are delighted to be part of the existing cinema-led development that will transform Ashton Town Centre. So this was April 2019. The Council Cabinet approved a £4.6 million loan and £3 million grant to create a cinema, restaurants and bring new shops into Portland Park. This funding included a capital contribution of £1 million by Advanced Northumberland will be used to develop the site. As I say, it's great to see that site up and running now, but what's happening with this cinema? This was April 2019, the funding's been approved. Where is it? Thank you.
The costing has been affected by the COVID and general construction inflation. That's why we have to revisit the tenders.
Okay, right. Thank you. That's the end of the questions there. So go to point 16 in the agenda, and it's to receive minutes of the Cabinet meetings held on Tuesday, the 8th of March 2022, page 185 to 198, and on Tuesday, the 29th of March 2022, on page 199 to 204. And can I ask that we approve the following resolutions? They involve budget and policy framework matters. Minute number 95, I've got my Roman numerals 14 and 15 of the page 187 and 188. Can I ask as a proposer for those minutes, that particular minute, please? Proposed by Councillor Wearmouth, seconded by Councillor Sampson. Do we agree that minute? Agreed. Thank you very much. I'll go to the next item on the agenda, item 7. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a question on those minutes on page 197, and it's to do with the relocation of the Pegasus Centre from Tranmere to Kirkley Hall. The minutes do state that the report from the Facts Committee, the Facts Overview and Scrutiny Committee, was noted, but if you refer to page 225, which is the Facts Committee minutes, Facts members did, they felt they couldn't support the recommendation without further information and did request that the report be returned to the committee for consideration after the points raised were addressed. Can I ask when this report will be coming back? Because as far as I'm aware, we haven't had anything yet.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I missed you when I was trying to transact business. Does anyone, Councillor Thompson, would you have any information?
I've briefly turned round to speak to Audrey, Director of Education. It's my understanding that we didn't have the time to do that, and therefore Cabinet had to approve because the moving of the Pegasus Centre to Kirkley Hall was quite a crucial thing to do, so we didn't have time to go through the motions of it coming back to Facts again. Apologies.
Okay. That was already done through, so I'll go to item 17. It's to receive and consider minutes from the committees as set out in the agenda papers. And the first one is Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny. I go to Councillor Bourne.
Thank you, Chair. I move the minutes of the Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 7th of March, pages 205 to 208.
Those agreed? Thank you. Go to Family and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and firstly I go to Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be moving the minutes of the Family and Children's Overview and Scrutiny Committee, pages 209 to 226. Councillor Dodd will need to move the minutes for the supplementary report. I wasn't present.
I'll go to Councillor Dodds and we'll take them on the block.
Yes, I move the minutes of that meeting, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Are those minutes agreed? Agreed. Thank you. The next one is Communities and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee, page 233 to 264. Councillor Reid.
Thanks, Chair. I move the minutes of the Communities and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committees as written on page 233 to 264.
Are those agreed? Agreed. And I go to the Health and... Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a couple of points on the committee that I'm on. I just want to make some points to inform full council. 237, we have a bit of scrutiny there around empty homes in Northumberland. I understand that the council is doing a housing review process, which is taking place. Can you take into account, please, and the concern of the people that work in that team? They do a fantastic job, but I think there's only about 4 people there. So when you make the future decisions around empty homes, and the other thing is that I'm very concerned about the funding or the grants that come into that particular, the empty homes for Northumberland. It's 500,000 that comes from government, but I'm just concerned that maybe one day with government cutbacks, that department may not be able to function. The other thing is that the department desperately needs to connect with other departments within NCC for them to be successful in the roles that they do. So when you're doing your reviews, would you take them into consideration? And the reason for that is if anybody, and I'm talking about all wards and all areas of Northumberland, has an empty house within their zone or ward, it becomes a magnet for all issues around antisocial behaviour. It brings down the properties and it brings down the idea that where people live isn't a good place. So if we can keep on top of that. The other thing that I wanted to bring back was page 241, where it's mentioned, just as a point of clarity, the Ashton Town team is still functional, but non-operational. So, you know, you reflect back to the Ashton Town Council there. And one other point that I want to bring up is on 260, page 260, paragraph 2, we went through scrutiny and NCC officers are doing a fantastic job to incorporate a new interactive reporting system. Now, I think this needs as much support as we can give from this council. And the reason for that is this is something that could roll out into other departments. It could roll out into the frontline services, planning, everything else. So I want the reassurance from the county that we'll pursue this as a point of urgency, because it will save on finance, which will help the leader. And the other thing is it will save on officer time, and we can get on with our work. So I just needed to highlight that. There weren't searching questions, but it's something that we in Scrutiny picked up, a small group of people, but the council needed to know that the work that we do in Scrutiny is really paramount and important. Thank you.
Well, could I just pick up that last point, which is I agree with you completely, and it is work that's being carried out at the moment. We have got a transformation programme underway, which members are aware of, and we're going to update you on that soon. But that's all about how do we do it better and how do we get the customer-facing experience better. Anyone that's tried to get hold of Northern Power Grid will know how good we are. And, you know, we are pretty good. I know I can praise the staff, for example, on the fact that during the busy time when council tax bills went out, the waiting time on the answering service was only 4 minutes, which is really good considering the amount of people that they deal with. But you're quite right, and I'm with you on that, and we will look at that very carefully.
Yeah, can I just bring in about housing? On page 239 and 240, it's just about the infrastructure levies, but also about planning obligations, because the government's just brought in a change in their planning law. They're looking at about affordable housing, and I think we need to have a look at that more closely, because actually it could be detrimental to the council, especially about affordable housing not being recognised but changing the name to making houses better to buy or easier to buy, but taking affordable housing away. And I would like that to be picked up very quickly, because actually it's so important to this council with delivering affordable housing as it is now in the local neighbourhood plan.
I'll move on to the Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and that's Councillor Veronica Jones.
I'd like to move the minutes of the Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committees of the 15th of February and the 1st of March 2022, and that's pages 265 to 272. Oh, 278, sorry.
Are those agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Right, I'm going to move on to Health and Wellbeing Board, page 279 to 296. That's what I chaired, and that's on the 10th of February 2022 and the 10th of March 2022. Are they approved as a true record? Agreed. Approved as a true record. And then I move to the Standards Board on page, Standards Committee, I beg your pardon, on page 297 to 302, and that's the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 10th of February. That's a busy day for me, at 2 p.m, and I present them as Vice Chair of that committee. Are they agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Okay, I'll then go. Sorry, Councillor Day, I missed you. Beg your
Thank
pardon.
you. I just wanted to mention about the Standards Committee because it's a very important committee, and over a period of time the committee have had to do a lot of hard work. But the important thing is that when we read our new code of conduct, that really we need everybody to reflect on their behaviour and respect the code of conduct, so we don't have the Standards Committee having to oblige taking on all these cases of bullying. It's not nice, and all the other things. And I think that if we can drill in further, I don't know whether you can send it to the parish councils. The code of conduct should be looked at there again. But otherwise, it would be great to change around and just say we've agreed a code of conduct today. The parish council would like to, maybe they'd like to have a look at it, because there's problems in parish councils too, but also this council reflects all of us on our behaviour towards staff and to everybody, and let's make the Standards Board fulfil its obligation, but as few people as possible. And I ask that that members don't have any input or interference in the Standards Board, and the Standards Board are allowed to get on with their work independently. And I would ask Councillor Sanders, and I supported you with the Code of Conduct, that you support my view about actually making sure that Standards Board work, and that we let everybody go through properly without any interference from anybody, any members at all. And I ask that of you.
I can come in as Vice Chairperson and just say that I can say with my hand on my heart that I know members of that committee act with real surety, with an open mind, and exactly to existing previous codes of conduct, and will do, I no doubt, with forthcoming codes of conduct. And I'll also add that I know that Mr Joe Jackson, as the chair, takes that same spirit and is a very good chair and is a very fair chair and wants to see fair play all the time. So I'll just say that, but I don't know if anyone had. Councillor Dodd, beg your pardon, sorry, that's a Freudian slip. Councillor Dickinson.
Don't age me, don't age me. I'm saying don't age me, but you have been on holiday, so you're looking well. Anyway, I just wondered, in light of the amount of ongoing, in terms of caseload on page 363, my members report that the meetings keep getting cancelled and they're never held. So I'm just wondering,
with respect,
can I just finish?
No, well, I just say with respect, Councillor Dickinson, you said to page 363. We're moving the minutes from page 297 to page 302.
Well, apologies, I thought it was the annual report of their standards.
Yeah. Too quick out the block. Can we agree those? Well, we have agreed them, haven't we? Right, so I'll get on to annual reports then. We're getting to the end, so I'm just going to push forward. Right, it's receive and consider the following annual reports, which are for our information only, enclosed in Appendix B to the rear. Before these reports are presented, please note these to receive and consider. They are for noting. May I now turn to the individual scrutiny chairs to present their individual reports. Councillor Bourne for Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. It's all in the report. We've had a very productive year. We've been looking at all sorts of interesting things across the county. We're looking at the Borderlands. We've got 2 reports on the Northumberland line, Newcastle Airport. We had an issue with looking at the issue of the dissolution of the council's partnership with Northumbria. We looked at the budget, we looked at household support. We had several in-depth discussions regarding what support can be given to households, which was very productive. So I think we've actually done a very thorough job. I'd like to thank my Vice Chair, Councillor Dunn, and the members of the committee, and also our Scrutiny Coordinator, Sean, for keeping us all in line and doing an excellent job. So thank you very much.
Okay, the next one is Community in Place Overview and Scrutiny from Councillor Oliver and from Councillor Reid. So, Councillor Oliver, did you wish to go first?
I would just like to say I enjoyed my time very much chairing that committee, and thank you very much to Sean and all of the other members. And I think we did some very interesting work, but I'll hand over to Jeff because I think he's had a longer time during this period on it. Thank you.
Trying to observe protocol. It's up to the chair to decide who's going to speak, not members. But anyway, there we are. Yes, the report is as written. I'm always happy to take questions and queries throughout the year, not just now. Again, I'll echo what was said about the officer support we have. Sean, Chris, really good, solid officers who know their job and help us a lot. I look forward to this coming year when I've been allowed to continue, which I very much appreciate. And thank you for everybody turning up. Thank you for all of the contributions that were made. And, let's carry on.
Okay, the next one is health and wellbeing overview and scrutiny. This first one, I'll go to Councillor Reid and then to Councillor Jones.
Why did I sit down? I got the star prize for this one, didn't I? So I steered the overview and scrutiny committee through a very difficult time at the beginning of the year. Again, thanks to the support I had from all of the members who asked intelligent questions, particularly Councillor Hill. We did a good job under difficult circumstances. We handled the only call-in we've had for many years. It was done properly and correctly and came to the right decision. So again, I'm happy to answer questions. You can email me later or ring me or ask them now if you wish. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, we're to note here, so I'm going to encourage emails to you, and then I'll go to Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I'd like to present the annual report of the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee from December last year. I've just been the chair since December, and we've had a really interesting thing. I think Councillor Reid had the difficult time, and as a chair, I've had a very pleasant few months. We've looked at quite a lot of reports. Particularly one I wanted to mention was the difficulties in getting dentist or GP appointments. But I will say, as well as thanking the staff, who again have been marvellous, I'd like to thank the committee, who are very sensible and asked really good questions, and we've had some good answers from our the people who've come to present. So I'd just like to thank everybody and say that's it really. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to present the annual report. Sorry, beg your pardon, I'm jumping the gun. Family and Children's Services, Wayne Daly. I just nearly stole your thunder. I apologise.
Thank you, Chair. So I appreciate the brevity of those who presented their reports. I'm not going to be so brief because I think there's actually a lot that we should celebrate from the Facts Committee. I want to put on record thanks to Chris Angus and to Leslie Little. I've had the honour of having two vice chairs in the last year. Gordon Stewart, I promise I will not mention Prudhoe at all in what I say, and Councillor Richard Dodd. And also it would be remiss of me not to put on record, as we did at the last Facts meeting, our appreciation and thanks to Kath McAvoy-Carr, who sadly is leaving the authority. And for those members, particularly newly elected members, and I did make this clear to everyone on the Facts Committee, that the purpose of our scrutiny is to challenge, to improve and help to develop policy. So those are the parameters that we need to look at with any scrutiny committee. And ultimately for the Facts Committee, it's about giving the best start in life for our young people across Northumberland. So the annual report summarises the detail of the work that we've done as a Facts Committee. And if anyone doubts the ability of Facts to make any improvement in anyone's life in Northumberland, let me give you one example. Facts brought a report which looked at the high number of exclusions in our schools. We brought the report, Councillor Swinburne chaired that particular meeting. We brought our school leaders in, the school leaders sat in a table, we banged head together, and we reduced the number of exclusions. That has a direct impact on the life chances of our young people in the county. And in addition to that, another thing which I want people to understand is our committee changed national education policy. So prior to this, education funding was based on two things, primary and secondary. That was it. We don't have primary and secondary alone in Northumberland. We also have first, middle and high schools. We changed policy along with the Schools Forum so that the funding policy reflects schools in reality, not what Westminster says. So I think that's a really good thing from facts. The investment in our education continues. The leader spoke about Amble, we spoke about Berwick, we spoke about what's happening in Seaton Valley, which we have listed in this report. We are building more children's homes, giving a good start to the lives of young people. We're supporting care leavers, and hats off to Northumberland Fire and Rescue Service for giving guaranteed pathways into employment for our care leavers. That's us using our power as a council to support young people. And members are also on facts and the Safeguarding Committee. We are signed up to a bit of a pilot, which is we are putting together a list of the people that we know, businesses that we work with, community leaders, and I'm hoping that that pilot, in order to support looked after children, is going to be extended across all members in this council, so please watch out for that. And again, the opening point I said is scrutiny is there to challenge and be a critical friend, which Ofsted love. 2016, this authority, education, was RI. For those who don't know, requires improvement. 2020, we were good with outstanding qualities. Kath McAvoy-Carr, her team, I was the cabinet member at the time, but we're all part of it, collectively. We were all part of that. So again, there's a really good evidence of how scrutiny can actually have a direct impact on the lives of young people in our community. And finally, what I want to say is that in early years and in primary, this county is leading the country. Not leading the North East, leading the country. Where we're failing is secondary. And most of our secondary schools are academies. So, with the permission of the Facts Committee, I am summoning the Regional Schools Commissioner to our meeting to actually find out how we can work with them to support them to uplift our secondary education so it becomes good or outstanding. That's the power of scrutiny. And finally, what I would say as well is that although Kath McAvoy is leaving, we have got some outstanding officers who are supporting education in Northumberland. We've got Audrey Kingham, we've got Graham Wright there in the back, and we've got David Street. I am very confident that we will continue the very positive trajectory that we've had as a council on education. It is a firm commitment that we've had as an administration. We're all corporate parents, so we're all in the game here to actually make sure that we have the best start for our children. I commend this report to members, and if you haven't read it, please do so. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to present Mr. Jackson's report from the Standards Committee. I would ask members to note the 6 points which have been made there. At this stage, I will just say there was comment made about cancellation of meetings. There is a distinction between scheduled meetings and actual hearings, and that's, I think, an important point. I'll invite Councillor Dickinson to email me, I was going to suggest, on this point and discuss this further if he needs to for any clarification, but there was distinction on that and a distinction in terms of changing the proportionality. I'm going to be very generous.
I'm just going to ask a very quick question because Councillor Dale did refer to it, and I know Mr. Jackson, under his stewardship, the committee runs extremely well, and he does a very good job. But we do need to look at the ongoing caseload, the amount that are complete waiting to be heard, whether it in a hearing or a scheduled meeting, because there are distinct differences, but there are some waiting to be heard, and other members who need to just be dealt with quite quickly where there doesn't exist. Now, understand that there are complexities in that because there are parish councils, there are other people who are not part of this authority who may well be bundled up in there. In fact, it breaks it down as to how many are county councillors and how many are parish councillors, etc., etc. but the transparency of it is really important, and the advice that Mr Jackson receives is really important, and I'd just echo the points that Councillor Dale made about that.
I have absolutely 100% confidence in Mr Jackson's chairing of that, and of the process, and of the members, and of the whole being of that Standards Committee. I go on to the next report, which is the Armed Forces Champions report, and that's from Councillor Watson, and I'm not sure if Councillor Castle may wish to say something. Well, I'll go to Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I thanked them earlier on for having the graveyard shift. I said if there's anybody left, I would say a few words, and actually the auditorium's still full. So I've got about 20 minutes worth of speech. But perhaps I'll condense that to one very quick comment. It's a really good report. Have a read of it, please. You'll see that there are over 200 referrals that we've had in the last year from needy people who are ex-service or service families. So it's really important that we do this work. And if you don't read anything else, would you read the bottom paragraph of the first page, which tells you what the biggest change is that we've done here in the last year. We used to work with Gateshead Outreach Centre, and we had 2 full-time employees who were working with them. We found it didn't work to our advantage. We found that it didn't really meet our needs, so we withdrew. We withdrew properly, carefully and considerably, so that we didn't disadvantage anybody else, but we have done that. And we are now working much closer with Mo Taylor's team and communities together, and it's working. And if you, as always, if you have a problem or someone in your area who has ex-services, please contact us. Jackie Rowell is a sort of centre for it all. She's done a marvellous job for us all year. Her, aided by Nicola, is really good, and our outreach workers as well. I am proud of what we're doing in this armed forces area, and I hope you are too. Thank you very much.
Councillor Castle, did you wish to?
I don't really the last person to speak, I suspect, up here, but thank you very much, Chairman. I agree with every word. It's more than a passive organisation. It's an active support of veterans, and I've yet to see a case that we haven't got well involved in. It hasn't worked out well. So I think we do a really good job. You've mentioned Jackie Rowell and Nicola Turnbull, first-rate officers. We rely on them, and they are really good indeed, and that's why it's such a good system. So I'm proud to be part of it. I'm a veteran myself, as I one or two here, and I'm really pleased we're doing a good job for the people that defend us. Thank you.
And with that, Councillor Castle and Council, I close the meeting. I don't think I've got any agenda on the next. Right, meeting closed.